Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into the economic clown show of 2025. I'm your host, the one-man wrecking crew of government incompetence and central bank baloney, here to expose the Fed's latest circus act and the Trump administration's tariff tirade. If you're sick of being fed fairy tales about transitory inflation while your grocery bill looks like a mortgage payment, you're in the right place. Let's unpack this mess, from the Fed's delusions to the White House's economic vandalism, and ask the question, who's really paying the price for this madness? Spoiler alert, it's you, the hard-working taxpayer. Oh, folks, here we go again. Fed Chair Jerome Powell, the maestro of monetary missteps, is back at it, trotting out his favorite word from the inflationary graveyard, transitory. If this feels like déjà vu, it's because it is. Cast your mind back to spring 2021, when Powell and his merry band of central bankers told us that skyrocketing prices were just a temporary blip. Don't worry, folks, inflation's just passing through. By the end of that year, with prices galloping faster than a thoroughbred at the Kentucky Derby, Powell sheepishly admitted it was probably a good time to retire that word. Fast forward to March 19, 2025, and Powell's at it again, claiming that Trump's new tariff hikes will have, what else, a transitory impact on inflation. Seriously, Jerome? Did you not learn your lesson the first time? Let's jog your memory. Inflation, as measured by the Fed's preferred gauge, the Core Personal Consumption Expenditures, PCE, index, is still running at 2.6%, above the Fed's sacred 2% target. And that's after the most aggressive monetary tightening in decades, with interest rates jacked up to levels that have crushed small businesses, sent mortgage rates through the roof, and left consumers gasping for air. But wait, there's more. Powell's base case is that tariffs won't push inflation higher for long, citing the 2018 tariff hikes under Trump's first term as evidence. Oh, really? Let's fact-check that, shall we? According to a 2023 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBR, the 2018 tariffs increased U.S. consumer prices by an estimated 0.2 percentage points and cost American households an additional $40 billion annually in higher costs. And that was during a relatively stable global trade environment. Today, with supply chains still reeling from pandemic disruptions, geopolitical tensions at a boiling point, and energy prices as volatile as a reality TV star, Powell's transitory prediction looks more like wishful thinking, or outright denial. Now, let's turn the spotlight on the White House, where Donald Trump is cooking up what he calls, the Big One, a package of reciprocal import duties set to hit on April 2, 2025. Trump's pitching this as a masterstroke to bring jobs back to America and stick it to countries he claims are ripping us off. Sounds great, right? Who doesn't want to sock it to those pesky trade partners? Well, hold your applause, because the devil's in the details, and the details are a disaster waiting to happen. First, let's talk numbers. Trump's proposed tariffs could slap a 10% to 20% tax on $3 trillion worth of imports, according to estimates from the Peterson Institute for International Economics, PIIE. That's right, folks, trillions with a T. Who pays for that? Hint, it's not China, Mexico, or the European Union. It's you, the American consumer. A 2024 report from the Tax Foundation found that tariffs are effectively a regressive tax, hitting low- and middle-income households hardest. For example, a 20% tariff on imported goods could increase the average American household's annual expenses by $1,200, with the poorest 20% of households seeing their costs rise by 2.5% of their income, compared to just 0.5% for the top 1%. And don't forget the ripple effects. Tariffs disrupt global supply chains, raise input costs for American manufacturers, and spark retaliatory trade wars. Remember 2018, when China slapped tariffs on U.S. agricultural exports in response to Trump's trade war? American farmers lost $27 billion in export revenue, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, and taxpayers had to foot the bill for $28 billion in farm bailouts. Fast forward to 2025, and the stakes are even higher. With global growth already slowing, IMF projections for 2025 peg world GDP growth at a measly 3.1%, down from 3.2% in 2024, Trump's tariff tantrum could tip the U.S. economy into a full-blown recession. Back to Powell and the Fed, who seem to think they can juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle and blindfolded. Powell's Wednesday press conference was a masterclass in complacency. Our policy is in a good place to react to what comes, he assured us, while admitting that it's a different time now, and the impact of tariffs is unknown. Translation, we have no idea what's going to happen, but don't worry, we've got this. Oh, and let's not forget his rosy forecast. Despite core inflation projected to hit 2.8% by year-end and GDP growth slowing to a pitiful 1.7%, less than half the 2024 expansion, Powell's sticking to his plan for 2 interest rate cuts by December 2025. Why? Because, in his words, weaker growth and higher inflation kind of balance each other out. Excuse me, Jerome, but since when does weaker growth and higher inflation balance out? That's not balance, that's stagflation, the economic nightmare where prices soar, growth stalls, and ordinary people get squeezed from both ends. And here's the kicker, Powell's so confident in his hard data that he's brushing off warning signs like a slide in consumer sentiment. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index, a key gauge of how Americans feel about the economy, dropped to 66.4 in February 2025, down from 70.1 in January, a clear signal that households are feeling the pinch. But Powell's not worried. Why? Because the stock market's doing great, folks. The S&P 500 jumped over 1% after his press conference, and treasuries rallied. Hooray! Who cares if Main Street's drowning, as long as Wall Street's throwing a party? But wait, there's a plot twist. Just when you thought this circus couldn't get any wilder, enter Donald Trump, the ringmaster of chaos. On Tuesday, Trump fired 2 Democratic members of the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, echoing a 1933 move by Franklin Delano Roosevelt that led to a Supreme Court battle over the president's power to fire independent agency officials. Why does this matter? Because, as former Fed official David Wilcox pointed out, it raises the chilling question, could Trump go after the Fed next? Here's the deal, folks. The Federal Reserve's independence is the cornerstone of its ability to make monetary policy without political interference. But if the Supreme Court overturns its 1935 ruling and gives the president unchecked power to fire Fed officials, that independence could vanish faster than a tax cut in a Trump budget. Imagine a world where the Fed's interest rate decisions are dictated not by economic data, but by political whims. Want lower rates to juice the economy before an election? Done. Worried about inflation? Who cares, as long as the stock market's happy? This isn't just a hypothetical. In 2024, Trump openly mused about influencing Fed policy, claiming in a November press briefing that the White House couldn't legally remove Fed leadership. But with this new FTC precedent, that legal barrier might crumble. And if it does, kiss goodbye to any hope of rational monetary policy. We'd be left with a Fed that's little more than a political puppet, dancing to the tune of whoever's in the Oval Office. So, folks, let's connect the dots. We've got a Fed that's asleep at the wheel, recycling failed predictions about transitory inflation while ignoring warning signs of stagflation. We've got a White House hell-bent on economic vandalism, slapping tariffs on everything in sight and threatening the Fed's independence. And who's caught in the crossfire? You, me, and every hardworking American trying to make ends meet in an economy that's teetering on the edge. Here's the brutal truth, this mess didn't happen by accident. It's the result of years of government mismanagement, from trillion-dollar bailouts to reckless trade wars to a central bank that's more interested in propping up Wall Street than protecting Main Street. And the data backs this up. The Congressional Budget Office, CBO, projects that the federal deficit will hit $1.9 trillion in 2025, fueled by tax cuts, tariff disruptions, and runaway spending. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that real wages, adjusted for inflation, have barely budged since 2021, leaving workers poorer in real terms despite nominal pay raises. So, what's the fix, you ask? First, the Fed needs to wake up, ditch the transitory fairy tale, and get serious about inflation, without crushing the economy into a recession. That means targeted rate hikes, not blanket tightening that punishes everyone. Second, the White House needs to drop the tariff tantrum and focus on real trade reform, negotiating fair deals that don't bankrupt American consumers. And third, Congress needs to step up and protect the Fed's independence, passing legislation to shield it from political meddling before it's too late. But most importantly, you, the American people, need to hold these clowns accountable. Whether you're a finance pro crunching numbers or a regular Joe crunching the budget, demand better from your leaders. Because if we keep letting them run this circus, the only ones getting burned will be us. That's all for today, folks. If you're as fed up as I am, smash that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Boss Economics World for more no-nonsense takes on the economic dumpster fire. Until next time, keep your wallets tight and your eyes open, because in this economy, no one's looking out for you but you.